Hi, welcome back to another episode of SEO on Air. I'm your host Aaron, and today we have James Kaatz, CEO of Illumination Marketing. We talk about local SEO, AI driven marketing strategies, and how to balance data driven marketing with a human touch. I hope you enjoyed this episode. What was your journey into SEO, and how did you kind of find yourself where you are today with Illumination?
I used wrestling to help pay for college because I was a very working wrestler, at least on the smaller scale, on the smaller scenes. And I graduated college with a degree in radio and television, and I decided to move to Houston, which is the fourth largest market here in the United States. And I got a job at a local ad agency where I became a media buyer for Fortune 500 companies. So some of my clients that I did media buying for included AT&T, SodaStream, Arby's, Sleep Number, FanDuel, helped to relaunch Zest, the soap in Canada. So that was a pretty cool project. Wanted a different challenge. And so I went over to a marketing company that was based in the automotive vertical, which is actually where I discovered my love of marketing. And what our section of the company did is we took big data. We were transitioning from a video service to a data service. We took big data and we used that to formulate marketing strategies based off of the industry. And so in the automotive industry here in the United States, there's all this national data that dealers are required to submit. Nationally, that data is made available. And so back in 2013, 2014, not a lot of dealerships were using this data to formulate a strategy. So we could figure out what makes, what models, what years were selling best in what specific areas. We could use that big data to discover who was the ideal buyer in a given market. We could go down to the zip code level, which in the United States is the about the smallest level here you can get. And so we could
Right.
figure out who lived where, and then we could tailor our advertising. And there's several good examples of how we did this successfully. But um, I did very well at that job. I got promoted into management within a couple of years, and we basically became marketing managers for automotive dealerships. And I helped take my section of the company from losing 400,000 a year to making just under 2 million in 2 years. And we grew our team from a team of 4 people to a team of about 10 people who each had about 10 people in various capacities under them that they were coordinating. And so it was our span of control went like this, right? And it was an interesting opportunity, but the automotive industry is pretty intense, and that it's a lot like sports, and that everyone's job is on the line every single month. And so when you start off the first 7 days of the month poorly, uh, these people's livelihoods are on the line. So they call you, they yell at you, they curse you out, they say unkind things about you and your family, especially when you're on the management side, because when things are going well, you don't hear from them. It's when things are going
Right.
poorly, and as a manager, that you hear from them. And so it was not an environment that was conducive to personal or professional growth anymore. So I started looking for other opportunities, and I got lucky enough to find one where I became a marketing executive in the healthcare industry. And so I got to transition from being fully strategy to being hands-on everything. And this company did revenue cycle management, which is helping to bill out for community health centers here in the United States. And it was run by a tremendous group of people, hearts of gold. And we redid their whole marketing strategy from the ground up. And so this includes redoing the website, redoing the SEO strategy, redoing the pay-per-click strategy, redoing the trade show strategy, redoing the social media strategy, videography strategy, all of this. And I had my hands in and doing a little bit of everything there. So very, very neat opportunity. And we helped them make 1.3 million more in first year contracts, more than they'd ever made en route to their first $20 million year in their 20-year company history. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is so fantastic. And they go,
Congrats.
yeah, congrats. Here's a small token of our appreciation. And it was a small token of the appreciation. And that when you start doing the math of it, you're like, the scales of justice are a little bit off here. And I understand it as a
It's
business
like, hey,
owner
thanks for
now.
making us a million. Here's a cookie.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of have to do that a little bit as a business owner, kind of, depending on the comp plans and things like that. So I get it. I'm not upset, but it became the catalyst, right? And there's a couple of catalysts, and this was one of them. And my wife, being the smarter of the two of us, she goes, why are we making all this money for other people and not even pennies on the dollar for ourselves? And I go, aha, you're right. And the light bulb goes on, and Illumination Marketing was born. And that was about 7 years ago now, 6, 7 years ago now. So It was a little bit of a journey, and so there's actually a two-parter to why we started the marketing agency. So that was part one, was kind of the financial part to make sure that we were getting more than pennies on the dollar. So there was a second reason why we got into starting our own agency. The first was the financial aspect of it, and the second was that we have an autistic daughter, and she was about 10 years old at the time, and smart as a whip, bright girl, special. She's a special girl, but she does come with the limitations or the differences that happen with autism and being special needs. And so at about 10, she was 10 at the time, and we used to go, and being autistic, there's only about three places that she ever liked to eat because autism is the sensory overload. That's basically what it is.
Right.
And so there's only three things that she really liked to eat. One of those places was called the Houston Texans Grill, and it was in a very popular spot of Houston, and it had the Houston Texans football team name. And so we're like, man, this place has the location, it's beautiful inside, the food is good, we like this. And so we went there pretty frequently. Well, one day we show up and there's just a sign on the door that says, "Thank you for the last 5 years. We've gone out of business." And my daughter, being
Oh,
10 at the time, she goes, "I don't understand. Why can't we go in? I want to go in and eat there." And we kind of had to explain to her a little bit of how commerce and capitalism and all of that worked. And um, me and my wife went somewhere else and we got to talk and we're like, this place had everything. Why did it go under? And so we started discussing it and we go, the only thing they didn't do was marketing because they relied on their name 100% and they relied on their location. And so what if they would have done marketing? Could we have helped them? And so that was the catalyst. We go, oh my God, we could help all these smaller businesses not go out of business and help feed their families and build the dream at the same time we're building our dream, right? And everybody wins together, and we can be a pillar of this community if we do this right. And we go, oh my gosh, we can affect all these lives. And so it was those two reasons that we really started our marketing agency. And it's a really, really long-winded way of saying, why did we get into SEO, right? Well, we are a full-service media and marketing agency, so we do everything from build strategy to build websites to SEO, pay-per-click, social media, all the way to videography, photography, drone videography, and photography, and everywhere in between. But my first real foray into SEO was while I was at that automotive marketing agency. And specifically, what we did was just kind of oversee the individual aspects of the program, and then we would trust those specialists to take the ball and run with them. Well, we had a dealer one day, he called me up and he goes, "Hey, I've got this store up here in Dallas, and it's just tanking. And I've been paying you guys for a year and a half in order to get this SEO going the right way, and it's just there's nothing." And I go, "All right, well, let me I'm not an expert in everything, but let me tell you, give
right.
me 48 hours, right? And I will have a solid answer for you. Either you should cancel off of us and go with someone else. I'll be brutally honest and tell you that, or give us the chance to fix it. But either way, in 48 hours, we'll know. Just give me that 48 hours." So he agrees. Start looking into it, and then I realized that our SEO team didn't even implement title tags. They didn't implement meta descriptions. They didn't do all the basics of SEO. And this is 2015, 2016, right? So I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And so I'm like, okay, so I figured it out. I did a big audit of the thing. I had our supervisors and our managers start doing audits, and I pulled in everyone I could pull in because it was just a failure in this particular instance. But it's okay if you make it right. Failures happen, right? It's learning
Right.
when you fail. So I told him all this, and I go, but if you give me, since we've been working on some of the basics for the last few years, if you give me about 30 days, I promise you'll see night and day difference. And he goes, "You know what? I'll give you 30 days. And if it doesn't show any progress whatsoever, I'm canceling you and I'm taking all my money with me." And this is a full service client. He's probably a good 10K, 12K a month client. And we're like,
Right.
all right, thanks for the opportunity. So we went back, we fixed all of that. Exactly. Challenge accepted, my friend. So we went back and we started implementing all the basic technical SEO aspects. We start going after the rank brain aspects of it, all the fun technical aspects. And lo and behold, within about 30 days, he saw a night and day difference. He started ranking for all of these cars because his market was big, but he was in a northern part of the market. So there was chance to start ranking fairly quickly, especially with some of the baseline work that our company had done at that point, our company being the automotive agency I was working for. And within 30 days, I'm like, he started to see those results, and then all of a sudden it meant something for him. And so I'm like, fantastic. So that was my first foray into SEO. And I go, huh, maybe this works, right? And so
And maybe I
it
can
was the
continue doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we can continue doing this. So that was the first real foray into it. And then when I went and became a marketing executive, that was the second part of the strategy. So I knew that we needed some short-term strategies to drive awareness, but we also knew that the buying cycle for that company was about 18 months. So nothing happened quickly. They did marketing and services for they didn't do marketing. They did the services, the revenue cycle services and software for community health centers, which is government run programs. And it takes about 20% of the healthcare in the United States. So it's a giant portion, but since it's government sponsored, there's not a ton of money into it, which means that you rely on grants to get it, which means it takes 12 months to get the grant, which means they have 6 months after that 12 months to figure out where they want to spend that grant money. So it usually took about 18 months to really get that sales cycle going. So we knew that we needed to put a long-term plan in place that could start to generate awareness and leads in the long term, and then a short term plan in place to get them into that buying funnel, or at least the marketing funnel instead of the buying funnel, just to drive the awareness. And so that's what we started doing from day one. We started working on the SEO. We started working on some terms that were not necessarily obscure, but they weren't very competitive, but they were extremely valuable and beneficial for that company and the niche that they served. Things like
Right.
patient-centered medical homes, what's the history of community health centers, things like that. So it was high-level content, that top of the funnel content that we started writing, hoping that would rank in 12 months, 6 to 12 months, in order to generate that awareness. So just when the next sales cycle started, that we knew that we would be top of mind to start to get them into the buying cycle from the marketing cycle. And so it worked like gangbusters. So after about 9 months, we wrote all these articles. This is one of the first things I did when we got there. We redid the website and we wrote all these articles. And um, it started generating awareness. And the majority of the traffic that went to their website was from these 3 or 4 blogs that we ended up writing in the first month I was there. And from that, it was just further reinforcement that if you're looking to grow your business long term, SEO is probably the way to get there. Granted, you should sprinkle in some other factors of marketing, but the best marketing plan has a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy. And so that's really when we started doing it. And then, of course, we started our own marketing company, and I couldn't take on all that marketing work by myself as a solopreneur. But as we grew and we started adding team members and we started adding contractors and we started adding all these other different people, then we decided to start tackling SEO now. And it's actually the majority of what we do as a business at this day is SEO, just because when it's done right and it's done well. So those are two very important qualifying factors, right? But when it's done
Right.
right and it's done well, there's nothing that will beat it as a long-term strategy.
What were, let's say, some of the common hurdles that you had to go through in both the client aspect or just, let's say, Google algorithm updates that used to come up in between? What were some, let's say, common problems that you had to run through?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like any business, there's growth pains, right? And so that's growth from, are we getting enough leads in as a small marketing company to start off, to the fact of, can we get sustainable leads in to grow our company, to hire employees, and then you have to hire the right employees. And then on top of that, do you have contractors to fill in any gaps of the employees that they might be overwhelmed or they can't handle? So there's all these different aspects to running a business. And I think, honestly, the thing that that I don't think is talked about nearly enough, because I like trying to expose myself to other business owners and podcasts and people who have been where I want to go, right? And they're trying to get to their next level, but I'm trying to get to where their level was when they started 10 years ago or whatever it was. But is the emotional roller coaster that it takes from owning your own business. Because most
Right.
people think, yeah, it'll be like a stair step climb up, right? But it's really not. You don't just plateau. It's more like a roller coaster, because when you reach that first bottleneck, it seems like things just start to fall apart. And then you go back down and you're like,
Right.
ah, and you start the scrambling and you panic, and then you go, okay, and then you turn it back and you surpass your further plateau than you were at, and then same thing, you hit a bottleneck, whether it's funds, or your processor goes out, or whatever it might be. Your employees decide, a key employee decides to go for a different opportunity, and then you have to replace them, and so all of a sudden you take that dip back. And so it's this constant roller coaster of, you're like, oh, all's right in the world, I'm a millionaire, and then the next week you're like, oh
And then,
no, my business is going to go out of business tomorrow. And During the
Right.
pandemic, especially, those roller coasters
Right.
were up and down because a lot of
Another
what
level.
oh yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of what we did was face to face networking, pressing flesh, shaking hands, getting out into the community. Because one thing about our business that we haven't really done yet, I mean, we have a little bit. We've expanded with some national clients, but we don't really work outside of the Houston market much. And it was a conscious choice because we like working face to face with people. And it's not that we can't, hop on a plane to go, but there's something to be said about being able to drive and be 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 120 minutes away from somebody versus a 4 hour flight. And so it's a full day of planning to go on those. And so we have done those, but the majority of our clients are local. So it's anyway, I don't remember where I was going with that one, but it's that roller coaster that I think has been the biggest thing is the business owner. And then operationally, it's, we haven't necessarily niched down either. We do several niches, and we've done them very successfully. Everything from car dealerships to healthcare to um, let's see, what else have we done? We've done salons, we've done landscaping companies, we've done a little bit of everything, and all of it to varying degrees of success. So there's always the operational challenges, and each business is different. And so I think the best marketing agency comes in and tries to understand your business. And then they really tailor that strategy. And although there are some basics that work, we know SEO will work for a car dealership, and we know SEO will work for a plumber. The way you get there is just a little bit different. So it's understanding those. And if you try to take the out of the box, one size fits all approach, I think you're likely to crash and burn as far as an agency goes.
Then let's say I am a business owner of a plumbing agency. I am B2C mainly. I'm not helping any other plumbers. The business is called Papa's Plumbers. Would this be, let's say, something that we could use throughout the podcast as an example?
Sure.
So, as the owner of Papa's Plumbers, I can give you, let's say, a bit of context for what I have already. I have a website, very basic. It's got a few, let's say, call to actions to at least make sure people can reach me. There's maybe one blog on my page, but that's pretty much about it. What would you, I mean, you can call out how bad this is, but what would you say would be some of the foundational work I need to put into this website to at least get off the ground and have like at least the basics of SEO taken care of?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually run into this one quite a bit because someone throws up a one-page website and they go, "This is great. It's all I need." And I'm like, it depends on what your
Exactly.
goals are. If you're trying to
Right,
get
right.
found by other people on search engines, probably not, unless you're the only plumber in the market. So that's one of
Right.
those things. So what we try to do is follow the silo structure where it's a very modular type of structure that makes sense to the algorithms, in order to make sure that every page relates to the other page to helps it get found. And so that's where we usually start with websites. We go, hey, at a very, very minimum, you need to break your service pages out into separate service pages. Because this is what I like to tell people, especially who aren't into marketing, is the whole purpose of the algorithm is to return the very best answer for every question asked. And so the more specific,
Right.
the better. So if someone's looking for an emergency plumber near me, they don't want to see how you can, change out a water heater. It's not relevant.
Right.
And so that's where we start is expanding the website out into different services to start, just because that more specific the page, the better the result you're going to get. And then you go to make sure your rank brain's correct, that you have all your technical stuff. That's what I like to technical stuff. But SEO experts will know what you're talking about, the title tags, the meta descriptions, the content
Right.
link,
Right.
the LSI keywords, all the fun stuff. But we have to make sure that that's formulated in such a way that A, the algorithms can read it, and then B, it makes sense, and then that those appropriate keywords that we're trying to rank for are within the first 150 words of the paragraph. And then we want to make sure that we have about 1,500 to 2,000 words on each service, which again, if you do that alone, you make a service page and you make 2,000 words on that service, you're going to stand out against 99% of your competition, because most people just don't think in those terms. But all of the
Right.
data, when you're looking at SEO, shows that longer articles have a tendency to rank better. And so you can start doing that. You put in those LSI keywords, you make sure that it's within the first couple paragraphs, you make sure that your title tags are right, you make sure that it's structured in a way that makes sense, and then you make sure to interlink those pages. You do all that, you're going to start seeing those rankings pop up within about 90 days, is what we tell people.
I think I think you've mainly touched upon data as being a very necessary item that for at least for your keyword research, or at least whenever you're doing anything, at least you kind of need to have that kind of data backed up. I wanted to ask the question before, but I feel like now could be a good time to actually shoot it out. But how does someone prepare that much data for whatever needs, whether it's marketing or SEO? Is there like more organized or streamlined way to do it, or tools that can help you kind of accumulate all this data?
That's a great question. Yeah, there's no shortage of tools out in the world, especially in this age we live in. Everything's software as a service now, right? And so
Pretty
there's a
much.
ton of tools out there that can help you do whatever you need to do. And even starting from a basic like Chat GPT now, it's crazy how in depth you can get if you go, I need to know what customer lives in this zip code. Give me all of the demographic data. It will pop it right out, and it'll pull from things like city data or Experian data or all these different data sources that you can use. But as far as building a customer profile, there's tools that'll do it like that now. And it's just nuts because 10 years ago, none of it existed. You had to do it all manually. And so there's ways to shortcut it. Again, the whole key to marketing is understanding your customer and then being able to answer the very specific questions for very specific people. And if you can do that and relate that material to them, it makes a lot more sense. So that's why you have to be able to understand the customer profiles. And again, you can use, at least here in the United States, there's a bunch of different tools. You can use city-data.com, which will pull all of the census data. You can go through, if you're industry specific, like automotive, they publish all of that data to let you know who buys what, where, and what zip code. Which is just incredible. Dentists have something similar. You can pull data from your customer relationship management system, and that will give you a ton
Right.
of great demographic data. And then once you get on that demographic data, which is really your foundational starting point, you can go down the wormhole or the rabbit hole of psychographic data, which is, not just who they are, but how do they think. And if you can master
Right.
that how do they think portion of it, then tailoring your message to those people will make you stand out in the crowd. So there's a lot of different ways to wrangle in that big data.
Let's say I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but I did come across a tool. Do can I just use these tools and then trust what they're kind of giving me their output? Or do I have to actually have some kind of base level knowledge of all this stuff, or consult someone about it to kind of make sure that I am getting the right thing and not just, giving away my details?
I guess it depends on the tool, right? But some are more accurate than others. But data, any data, making an informed decision is a better path to go on than not making an informed decision, right? It's not just throwing
Right.
everything against the wall and seeing what sticks, which is how advertising and marketing used to be. Now we
Right.
have the ability to start tailoring that. Um, where it becomes beneficial for maybe Papa's plumbers or business owners, right, is that you can start using this data and you're going to pay for it either with your money or your time, right? You're either going to pay your
Right.
time to learn how to do this thing, or you're going to hire an agency or a person that already knows how to do it because they've already put the time in to learn it. So do you want to shortcut your success rate, or do you want to save your money? And I don't need to tell you what rich people do, right? They
Right. Right.
invest their money into highly skilled people because people is how you scale a business. There's literally no other way. You can't do everything by yourself. So, um, yes, it's a good place to start. No, you don't necessarily. I mean, you have to have at least some type of baseline to know I need this data because, but you
Right.
can you can hit the ground running or you can pay to shortcut the process. It's really your choice.
I believe that's an SEO AI tool to kind of help you out with ranking factors and whether or not your content is good.
Mhm.
That was done with a very quick Google search, but could you tell us more about that tool and how it can probably help?
Yeah, sure. It's one of those tools I got off of AppSumo. I don't know if you're familiar with AppSumo, but it's a great
Right.
place for some fresh
That's
software.
literally what I found it just now.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's a great place for some trial software that's really not ready to run it out for the whole world just yet, but it's almost like a beta program where you pay for a one-time lifetime fee for a lot of these things. So from time to time I go on there and just I try to figure out if there's any tools that I can use that might be competitors to famous tools, right? Because everyone wants their share. And so
Right.
Labrika was one of those that I found on there.
If you had to compare the two in, let's say, purely the SEO side of things, would you rank Labrika over ChatGPT or vice versa, I guess?
And I think I would use ChatGPT just because it's so much more user friendly. But the problem with ChatGPT is you need to know the questions that you need to know to ask in order to get the answer out.
Right.
And so if you don't know what you don't know, then it's not as useful to you. Where Labrica is kind of, hey, put in your website, hit a button, it will give you a technical audit. But then it pops out, 150 pages of technical audit, and you go, oh my God, what do I do with this? Right? So I think
Right.
it's a knowledge thing either way. But if it
Okay.
were me, I think I would go the Chat GPT route to start because A, it's
Right.
free to start, and then B, I think you can learn as you go. And there's tons of
Right.
prompts out there. If you can Google them or even Chat GPT them and go, hey, Chat GPT, ask me 20 questions to start before we um, get to whatever we're trying to get to. And so it will ask you those 20 questions. And just as an example, hey, ask me 20 questions about how to get the ideal customer profile for Papa's Plumbers in wherever we're at. And then it'll ask you 20 questions
Right.
and it will then populate your thing for you. So as long as you can figure out how to ask the questions, then you can get some really, really in-depth answers.
And I feel like tools like this can help in efficiency, but I think we'll need a reminder that it's not a replacement. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what should be the input between human and AI when it comes to these types of tools?
So when ChatGPT came out last November, I think is when it was, and it took the world by storm. But initially, the algorithms came out and they said, "Hey, it's a great tool, but we're not going to rank it, and we can tell that it's AI generated, and so we just don't trust it." And so they go, "Don't use it." And I'm like, "Okay." So you needed human writers to continue to write all the content. And then, what was it, April-ish, they came out and they said, okay, we trust it a little bit more now, so we're going to start ranking it. And then, like, okay, so now all this information that you're getting out of Chat GPT kind of becomes homogenized. But it's still, you can tell that it's AI written content. And so, what happens in another 6 months where Google comes out with a competitor or Microsoft comes out with, I think it's Bard, is what Microsoft had. And they go, hey, we're only going to use content that was written by this platform and we're going to de-rank everything else. And then you go, oh no, this last year that I've put into it has all of a sudden gone away. And so, what are you going to do? And that's why when it comes to using AI, the human factor, I think still is just forever going to outride what we'll do with AI. And where you can use AI to help with those workflows is um, you can use it for outlines, you can use it for research, you can use it to structure some of your content, but I think you still need a human touch in order. Just this is us personally. We'll forever use the human touch just because I want to mitigate my risks, and I think there's something to be
Right.
said to having an error every every now and then. It makes you human, so to speak, right? And I don't think we live
Right.
in a world where people expect perfection, even though we have GP things like Chat GPT. And then at what point does there become so much information out there that these algorithms start pulling the wrong data, right? And
Yeah.
we've run into that a couple of times. We've seen some, especially early on, where the information was just wrong, and especially as you get more specialized and technical, uh, and the aspects of some of the industries that we've worked in, and oil and gas and turbines and manufacturing and things like that, that you really need someone who knows what they're talking about to write some of these documents.
Where do you see the future of AI and other AI tools kind of going in the near future? Probably at the end of this year and beyond. Do you think maybe that
Have you
we'll
seen The
start
Matrix?
using? At least
uh,
it seems a bit better result than the Terminator, at least.
that too, right? Um, if it's not regulated and controlled the way that it needs to be from the gatekeepers who build the companies, then it's scary what it might be able to do. And so
Right.
I'll put it like this. I found a website the other day that allows you to copy somebody's voice and then put your own voiceover in. And so you could put in Morgan Freeman, and then it will sound just like Morgan Freeman reading your script. And that's
Right.
all AI driven. And so really, really cool. I'm like, okay, so I can get Morgan Freeman for $20 a month to narrate all of my Illumination marketing videos. Morgan Freeman.
Right.
Or can I get President, Biden of our country? Can I get him to come in and say, "I hate America," and do that? And then all of a sudden, like politically, the country is thrown into turmoil. And so
Right.
that's already happening, right? And so, not to mention with like deep fakes and all these stories that you hear about on that, where AI video can recreate someone's face. So now you can recreate their face, you can recreate their voice, you can put them into holograms, and I mean, you can cause some serious turmoil with it, all this AI. So where is it going, right? It's scary when you start to think about what possibly could go wrong and how it's already there, but most people just don't know about it. And so I guess it's what is it, worse, you can use it for good or evil, right? It, depending on the people.
Right.
And so it's kind of scary to where it could go. But while we're still here in the infancy stage, I'll be like, hey, I'll use it as best I can to help us grow our business, right? Maybe I can
Right.
retire before the world has to go into a bunker.
Yeah. Or before you get turned into a battery.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I'm not a tech insider, so I can't tell you exactly how deep that rabbit hole goes. But just from an outside perspective, I can see how the geopolitical turmoil it would cause. Again, have the president of the United States start saying, "Oh my gosh, I hate the president of Russia," and then we start World War III, right? So, and it can all be AI generated deepfake technology, and it's just terrifying.
How do I use, let's say, the customer profiles that I've gotten to enhance my strategy further and scale higher?
Let's use automotive as an example, and then we'll jump back to Papa's plumbers, right? So automotive, we know a
Right.
very specific person is going to buy a very specific car. We know that, a single gentleman isn't going to go buy a minivan. It just doesn't generally happen. There's no reason for it. And so we know that a minivan is more likely to sell in a suburb to a woman who's between 35 and 50 who has children, or 25, well, you can say 25 and 50, but 30 to 50. Let's say that sweet range right there, right? That's the sweet spot. And so when we find out this data and we can layer it with other data, such as the Experian data or the census data, we know that that 35 to 50-year-old woman with kids lives in this specific zip code in this specific suburb. So are you likely to sell that car to them? And if you are, because you're close in proximity, then you can advertise that into that specific zip code. However, if you are on the other side of town and you know that there's going to be three other dealerships on the way, the only thing you're competing on is price. And I suggest never competing on price because it's always a race to the bottom, right? You always compete on value, not price. And
Right.
so it doesn't make a lot of sense once you layer that data on to do that advertising to reach that person to sell that product. So how does that apply to a plumber, right? Well, we know if the average house in Papa's plumber's radius, let's say 5 mile radius, again, it depends on the city and driving habits, all those things, which you can find big data on. But let's say
Right.
the 5 mile radius of someone who wants a plumber. Um, we know if they're older houses, then they might need repipe systems here in America because the pipes will only last for 30 to 50 years or whatever the corrosion process is with those pipes, or where they'll bust if we have a freeze or something along those lines. And so you can use that big data to take your AdWords into those specific locations, to run your TV advertising into those specific locations. In America, we can target it almost down to the neighborhood now with TV advertising, which is just like, right.
Right.
And then you can tailor your SEO content to specific locations within that zip code or within that 5 mile radius. And then it helps you to rank over time with location-based terms. So something near me will rank better if there is, let's say I'm trying to rank in Houston. So if I have Houston keywords, granted it's competitive, so not the best example, but in this situation, it is what it is. Anyway, so if I have those Houston-based location keywords, I'm more likely to show for Houston plumber near me, things like that. So that's how you can weave big data in, no matter the industry, because like two completely different industries, right? But it's understanding that customer and who they are and what their problems might be, to where you can answer that very specific problem for that very specific customer. And once you do that, that is effective marketing. That is effective sales. That makes your sales process so easy if you take care of the marketing on the front end.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for the chat, James. It was great.
Did well, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.